been lost, got no rabbit dog. Never let your rabbit get away. Never let no rabbit get away. Get away. Get away. Never let your rabbit get away. Last word he said, never let your woman have her way. Never let your woman have her way. Have her way. Have her way. Never let your woman have her way. Track, chicken on my back. Get away, get away. Never let no rabbit get away. Never let my rabbit get away. All right. There's an old folk song for y'all. Got them floating words in there. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Who knows who wrote it? But I heard that on an old recording. I can't remember the old fella's name that was doing it. That's some real early stuff. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're doing good. I'm doing fair to middling, as they say. Ain't got a whole lot on my mind. I just woke up. I like to get up early and play a banjo, a little bit of banjo, get my practice in while everybody's still sleeping. That's what I like about old nylon strings. They ain't so loud. Blast everybody out of the house. That tune I was doing there, I was using the 2-finger style. A lot of the real old-fashioned players, you'd see a lot of that 2-finger style coming up. 2-finger, overhand playing, up picking. It was a real amalgamation with stuff going on. Had the old African style, had a lot more of the overhand playing with the back of the fingernail. When I started playing old time music, clawhammer stuff, that's the way I was doing it. That's the way I learned it. And just recently, I've gotten into the more of a mixed up style with a lot, trying to throw it all in the melting pot. When I first started playing music, or banjo rather, around here, I didn't know anybody that played one. And I come across a couple of recordings, and it was bluegrass music from some neighbors on cassette tape. I made a copy of those, and from the best I could tell, it sounded like the guy was playing with his finger, his thumb and his finger. That's just the way my mind come up with it. I didn't have a book describing the right way to do it. So they had a music store in Philadelphia, old man Risher, called Risher's Music Store. I think it was called Risher's. I don't know if it had the word music store on it or not, but he was kind of a grumpy old man. You'd go in there and he'd follow you around like he thought you was trying to steal something. The old junk that he had in there was so old, it was it was one of those stores where the packages have already turned yellow. They've been sitting there so long. Had a bunch of old Johnson guitars, just a bunch of old cheap junk. And anyway, it was the only music store in town, close by. Felt like a lot smaller world back then when I was a kid. You go to Meridian, which is, only like 30-something miles away. And that was like a big deal back then to go all the way to Meridian, man. That didn't happen too often. Now I have to take Mom on a regular basis. Back when I was a kid, man, if I went to Meridian, I was in high cotton. But anyhow, I went up to the music store, old man Risher's up there in Philadelphia. And that's for my YouTube friends out there that's just tuning in. It happens across this that don't know me already. Thank you for stopping in. And Philadelphia, that's Philadelphia, Mississippi, by the way. The city of southerly love, as they say. I don't know how loving it is, though. This town is good and bad at the same time. It's got a lot of good folks in it, and it's got some sordid history. But I digress as usual. I was in the music store. I got some picks, finger picks, and a thumb pick. Figured out how to use them. I was playing two-finger style when I first started. I had a tenor banjo that I'd borrowed from an old preacher up here. Went to Macedonia Church. His name was Robert Allen. He was from Washington. He had this little banjo. I got it now. It was the first banjo I ever played. It was a tenor banjo, S.S. Stewart. And he got it from his grandpa. It was his grandpa's banjo. And he brought it up to the church, wanting some of the guys that played music up there to appraise it for him. And they didn't know what it was worth. They looked at it. I think somebody said it might be worth about $300 back then. Ain't worth that much more now. But maybe it's worth 5 or 6 by now. It's funny how the price of money keeps going down, but the price of assets do good to stay the same or maybe go up just a little bit. But anyway, Robert Allen had this old banjo. He brought it up there and I seen it. I was up there. I really thought it was cool. When you opened the box, it had that old weird smell to it. You could tell it was old. Somebody had painted on the top of the box, Billy Reed and his dance orchestra. Man, I thought it was a really cool thing. It was just, you see guitars all over the place. Guitars were pretty cool, but that thing was weird. It was different. I'd never seen nothing like it. Maybe on TV I'd seen somebody playing a banjo, but around these parts, nobody fooled with it. It ain't like being up there in Appalachia or something like that, where everybody's grandma or grandpa plays a banjo. Down here in good old Mississippi, mostly people play guitar. So anyhow, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I learned how to play two fingers to start with. And then later on, old Orban Lovern over there. Me and Dad used to go over to Douglas Lovern's house about once a week or once every 2 weeks. I was learning to play guitar. We'd go over there every couple of weeks or so, jam. Old Douglas would get his dobro out, And he'd always laugh and say, I ain't had it out since the last time y'all was over here. Janie got this, he'd say, Janie got this thing for me for our anniversary or something like that, or my birthday. He said, only time I ever play is when y'all come over here. Anyhow, it's real nice dobro, and we always have a good time jamming. I remember I used to love to listen to Willie Nelson, and I'd try to figure out how to play stuff like Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain, and when I figured out how to play that solo, he'd holler out when I'd play it. And I always, that really made me think I was made me stick my chest out a little bit. I'd get a lick now, and he was about the only one to go jam with, try to impress, So anyhow, I was talking about whenever I learned about the three finger stuff. With me and Dad, I'd gotten that old banjo and started learning it. And right away I could tell how to play Rocky Top, and I could tell, because I had this tape that I'd made from a neighbor that had Rocky Top on it, and it had Foggy Mountain Breakdown. And I could tell that first lick was about near the same. That them two songs started out real similar on that second string and that bottom string. I could tell they sounded about near the same. And I figured right out how to do that right off. I figured it out. I just started playing it, Dad said. I figured out Rocky Top, I believe, was my first tune to figure out on there. Roughly, I figured out how it went. And I mean, obviously, it wasn't just like Sonny Osborne was playing it. But roughly, I figured out where the melody was at. I was doing it two-finger style. So I was over at Douglas's trying to show off what I'd learned. And Orban, his brother, come over, and he's always been interested in music and played music. Had a lot of instruments and stuff, collect music instruments and whatnot. So anyway, he come over and he said, that sounds real good. He's really learning fast. He said he'll, when he learns how to use that third finger, he'll really have it going. And I was like, what? You're supposed to use three, huh? So I went back to relearning everything. And it took me about, I don't know, it seemed real hard for me to use my middle finger and do a Scruggs style banjo roll. So I just walked around doing like this, pretending like I was playing all the time for about 3 days. And I finally got the hang of it. And then I got into the bluegrass picking. Oh, I was into that. I mean, I was trying to play bluegrass anyway, but I really got into that Scruggs stuff. Anything I could find. And then somebody, I think it was Giles Peterson, if I remember correct. And if old Fletch is watching, that shout out to your kinfolks. He gave me a Earl Scruggs banjo book, and that really helped a lot, because it was telling exactly how to do it, how to put your picks on, telling him about his influences, showed how to do all the licks and the rolls. But I had trouble reading the tab because I didn't have the music on tape or nothing, so it made it real hard to decipher that tab without listening to how it was supposed to sound. It was hard. I could tell it was pretty straightforward to figure out what the notes were supposed to be, but to get the rhythm right, that's what I didn't understand, and I never did really get that in school. They taught us music, but I didn't pay attention. I hated music class in school. And when it comes to the reading music, I still remember this day how to remember what the notes are. It's every good boy does fine and face. And that'll give the letters of the lines and the letters of the spaces. Well, I remember that, the notes rather. But the timing, the quarter notes and the half notes and the dotted eighth notes and, 16th notes and all that. I mean, I can remember what they are to some extent, but I always had trouble getting the phrasing down. And I took band class for a little while, tried to play a cornet, which is basically a smaller scale trumpet. And that didn't last very long because it seemed like all I ever wanted us to do was sell shit. Every time I turn around, at first they wanted to sell spaghetti dinner tickets. They wanted to sell beef jerky and then candy. And I said, man, this sucks. All they got is a bunch of little peddlers working for them. And I quit. I stayed in there long enough to play in the Christmas parade. You know, I wanted to be in that. So I got in, I stayed in there till Christmas. And that was the end of my band career. I never did go back fool with it. We had this guy, Mr. Sullender or something. Mr. Sullender, I believe was his name. He was a band director. And he'd always wear like a light colored shirt and have big old sweaty armpits standing up there with that baton or whatever you call it. I just didn't like that guy, you know. He didn't seem to have no humor about him at all, you know. I mean, looking back, he was probably a nice enough fellow, and I never gave him a chance. But I was like that towards most of my teachers when I was in school. You know, I always expected them to be buttholes until they proved to be different. My school career turned out right off the bat, you know, I did not take to it. Right in kindergarten, you know, I started getting into trouble for talking too much in class. I remember I got a paddling, first paddling I ever got, it was right off the rip, man, for cussing. You know, I said a cuss word and they paddled me, you know, sent me to the principal's office. I said, well, my dad says it. And they said, well, it don't make no difference what your dad said. You getting paddling. So I didn't like school, needless to say. Right off the bat, I thought it was a bunch of buttholes. I'd much rather have stayed home. And I stayed home as often as I could. And I usually used up all my sick days. I had quite a few doctor's excuses. But anyhow, I know this video ain't talked a whole lot about banjo playing. I've just been sitting here shooting the crap. That's about all I'm good at anyway, because I don't know all the history and the details of all this banjo playing. But here lately I've been getting into more the historic element of it and trying to mix all these styles together. You know, I really got into hardcore bluegrass, like I was saying. It was about the only thing I could find. I certainly didn't know what the difference was between old time music and all these different styles back then. But as time went on, I started getting more and more interested in old time music, you know. And now, you know, I'm very interested in the history of it, the historic element, and also just the sound, the different sounds. You get involved in bluegrass, after a while it all starts sounding the same. So you got to do something different, keep changing it up. I've been trying to play clawhammer and frill and going back to the two-finger stuff, and this Pete now since recently, that's more of a recent thing, getting back to the two-finger stuff, and also getting the Pete Seeger upstroke frilling in there. That's fairly new to me. But I've been doing the clawhammer stuff now for probably 10 years or longer than that, probably more like 12, 13 years ago I started doing that. Pretty good while ago. And, you know, listening to it. But I was listening to a lot of Dave making and stuff, string bean and all that kind of stuff. And a little bit of that Clarence Ashley and Doc Watson stuff. Just whatever I could find. What is that, Lost City Ramblers or something like that? I'm probably getting it mixed up, but I had a CD of theirs back then. And the Leake County Revelers, I believe Alan had a tape of it, or somewhere I got a tape of the Leake County Revelers back then. That's an interesting band right over here in Leake County, Mississippi. And I thought that was pretty cool that we had our own official famous old-time string band. And they got a couple tunes I want to learn. I want to get back to a lot of this old-time stuff. And another good thing about the old-time tunes, you don't got to worry about all this copyright crap, man, because that's a can of worms, man. People do songs on YouTube all the time that's copyrighted. And I mean, you know, you get a copyright strike. If you get 3 of them, they take your channel down, you know. So, I mean, you don't want to mess around with copyright material. And people do it all the time. I don't see how people get away with it. I guess they're not as strict on it as the guidelines say they are. But I know I was going to post, I had some stuff that was questionable. And I took it down because I'm concerned about, I don't want to get a copyright strike. So I'm going to pay more attention to the material I do in the future. And if anything I got on here is copyrighted, you know, I didn't do it intentional. From now on, I'll take the time to check into the songs. And if I got anything on here already that's copyrighted, I plan on continuing to check into the songs and, you know, what the copyright rules are on them and or status or whatever, and get them off of there, because I don't care nothing about having a bunch of copyright stuff on here. No way. You know, I mean, it's like the Scruggs songs. I could sit here all day and play Scruggs banjo tunes for y'all, very similar to what he played them. But you know, I mean, he's already done that. And I mean, you want to see that? Go. The best thing you can do if you want to see Earl Scruggs songs is watch those Martha White videos with Flat Scruggs. Watch, you know, get it from the horse's mouth. Don't watch a bunch of YouTubers trying to copy Earl Scruggs. Watch the man himself. You know, if that's what you like, or do whatever you want to. You know, if you want to watch a bunch of YouTubers try to copy him, well, that's fine too. But you know, I mean, it gets boring. I like to see when somebody comes up with their own thing. So here these days, I just try to listen to a tune, get it in my head, and then just play it from memory. Don't try to copy other people's versions of it. And now I'm trying to go back to all kind of old folk songs, you know, and try to find the oldest recordings I can find and listen to that and get it in my head. And I'm trying to make up a lot of stuff in my own style instead of just copying stuff that other people done to begin with. So I don't know, maybe you got to keep it interesting with this music stuff, man. You can play the same old stuff. You'll get in a rut, you'll get tired, you'll get bored with it, you get to where you don't even want to play. You got to keep it interesting. Keep digging in there and trying to find new ways and new things. There's so much to learn about it. And I've always been loved it, loved the music, loved old weird stuff, not your everyday thing. That song I was doing, though, that's kind of my kind of two-finger rendition of it. I'll play us out, try a little more of that. I want to learn how to edit these videos. I'm going to have to go over and get old Justin to teach me. He's a whiz with it. I've seen watch his stuff. He's got it all fading in and out and showing all these montages and all. My God, he's done become a that gone professional camera videographer over there.